Everybody, welcome back to the channel, Dynasty Citadel. Today, we're going to be tackling uh, what I will call a great debate. It's data versus gut instinct. It's those decisions you're making. You're trying to figure out who to start. You're trying to figure out what decisions to actually make in Dynasty. And sometimes you have a feeling, but other times you want to go with analytics. So today we're going to be deciphering between the two, see which one's better. Is the gut feeling better? Is actually using analytics better? Let's figure this out to get you some dynasty championships. So in fantasy football, we're constantly bombarded with target share, yard per route run, air yards, zone opportunities, and so on, and other metrics. Just a ton of metrics at us. But sometimes you just get a feeling when you watch a player. A lot of people watched Kyron Williams back in the day and was like, I like him from Notre Dame. He doesn't have all the metrics, but he's a good running back. And if you would have waited a year, now you have the person who's been, Kyron's been top 10. I want to say he's been 7 the past 2 years in a row. So it's things like that that underlying stats will never tell you, but you have to trust your gut sometimes. But also, you'll have analytics, and that's probably what we'll start with today. Because let's just use somebody like Patrick Mahomes, okay? So his advanced analytics were already telling a story, and more of a reason why the Chiefs moved on from Alex Smith back in the day. So just looking at his advanced analytics, he posted a 10.1 yards per pass attempt and adjusted completion percentage of 73.5%. So basically, though, everybody who drafted him in 2018 just off of those metrics, he was rewarded later on and got 50 touchdowns and basically in 5,000 yards and basically 417 fantasy points is what we all want. So things like that. So if you can find players like that, of course, Patrick Mahomes is one of the greatest players of all time. So it's a little different, but using analytics will help in that aspect. So let's take Christian McCaffrey back in 2019. The data, just looking at data, was showing he had a 93% snap share, 116 targets, 37 red zone attempts in 2018. And so if any fantasy manager realized that, you were trying to trade for Christian McCaffrey immediately and probably trying to give up whatever it took to get him. But if you recognize that, then you're rewarded with one of the greatest seasons. If not, it might actually be the greatest season from a non-quarterback. And you have different metrics to play in so many different leagues. But he gave you basically 2,300 total yards. I think almost 2,400 total yards and almost 20 touchdowns. So there's things like that. Even somebody like Justin Jefferson back in college, you're looking at him at LSU. He was the 5th receiver drafted in that draft class. I want to say, I know CeeDee Lamb, Judy. I can't remember the other receiver that was drafted ahead of him. But if you would have recognized that his college dominator rating was about 42%. I would say almost 18 and a half yards per catch at LSU. You could clearly tell he was elite. And you were rewarded that first year and have been rewarded ever since as a fantasy manager. There's things like that you have to use analytics, and because analytics aren't biased, they look at the numbers and they'll tell you who's great just based on the numbers. Now, that's not the only thing about fantasy, though. That's where gut comes into play, because you have to remember somebody like Amon-Ra. And Amon-Ra had good metrics, but going into his rookie season, actually playing through that rookie season, the metrics were not good for the first 12 weeks. But if you were watching the film, you could see a great route runner, see somebody who had the chemistry growing with Jared Goff. And if you picked up on that, then you realize, oh, he's actually a good player. And then you have that one boom week, turns into another, and then now Amon-Ra's the top 5. He should be about top 5 wide receiver in fantasy, or dynasty rather, if I had to guess. But somebody like that, Puka Nakua is another one, drafted in the 5th round. Analytics really could not help you. Of course, people were looking at yards per route run after the fact. I want to say he was at like 3.5 after the fact, but still, he was drafted in the 5th round. Any model would never had him. Of course, people have revisionist history now, but the models weren't having him a top 5 receiver in the draft class. Puka Nakua was going undrafted in most drafts, or he would be late third, maybe a 4th round pick. So, but you realize how much they were talking about him in camp. I remember people bringing up his name, and I never thought anything of it. And then you have a major breakout season. And of course, everybody looks at the yards per route run, but that's not something you really could tell back then. You just had to use your gut to see if this was a player that you really want to take a shot on. And for the people that did, they were rewarded. The last one, or actually not even the last one, James Robinson. That's another gut instinct. He went undrafted. Just looking it up, I forgot he ran a 4.640, and he was behind Leonard Fournette at the time. But in training camp, and they said the beat reporters as well were saying that his vision and power were a major plus for him. And people that trusted the reports and not necessarily the analytics saying he's a slow small back, were rewarded for that. Now it was one fantasy season, but you still were rewarded. So things like that, you really won't be able to tell just by using analytics. You do have to use a combination of both, to be honest with you. So there's a perfect blend that I won't say it's perfect. It's a bad choice of words. But there's a blend you could use for this approach. You could start with the opportunity metrics. We'll say targets, red zone usage, snap share, to identify players with solid floors. Then you can watch the game film. Now, watching game film is not as easy, to be honest with you. I watch red zone a lot, so I can see the game film on that. But I guess if I want to really hone in on to a player just to see what all they're doing, I can find it. I'll watch little things, but it's not necessarily my strong suit per se. But what I will say is, let's take Tony Pollard for instance. The data showed him with efficiency rate of 5.2 yards per carry. It would say 9.5 yards per reception and a 96%, not 96, 96.7 PFF grade back in 2022. All elite. Only problem was he was behind Zeke, and we thought that they were never getting rid of Zeke. Zeke had 63% of the red zone work. He was the lead back. But if you watch the film, you look at the stats and analytics, Pollard was better than Zeke at everything. And then he broke out in 2023. And snap right there, he gets all his opportunity, and the rest is there. Now he's still a lead back in Tennessee. Same with Austin Eckler in 2019. He was had an elite receiving profile, 3.2 yards per route run, 116.5 passer rating. And you could tell he was going to be a 3-down back, even though he was only 5'8". I want to say he was like 200 at the time. I know he bulked up. But you had Melvin Gordon there. And then he got a shot in 2019. And then he exploded for, I believe, a little over 1,500 total yards and 11 touchdowns. So that's where numbers kind of meet that gut feeling, and then you get a special situation. So my challenge when you're talking about fantasy football, dynasty football, was your decision driven by data, or was it a gut feeling? So when you're looking at people in this draft class, we think of somebody like a Brashard Smith. People have been talking about Kyle Williams. I'm talking about rookie prospects right now. But even when talking about, probably should have had somebody, let's say somebody like Jordan Love. Because Jordan Love was really good in 2023, kind of fell off because of injuries last year in 24. But that would be more of a gut decision right now. Or even somebody like Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed, everybody expected to be the Packers' number 1 wide receiver. Now he plays primarily slot. But if you look at metrics, Jaden Reed has a lot of positive metrics. In the last 8 games, he had a 27% target share, 2.32 yards per route run, and basically the team's #1 receiver. Now, the Packers didn't throw the ball much because Josh Jacobs was running the ball. But for those two scenarios, if you take Jordan Love, you take Jaden Reed, now you could potentially, create yourself a nice little storm and a nice little get. So it just depends on how you want to set this up for Dynasty. Even somebody, let's just take Tank Dell, for instance. Now, what's happened to him, to be honest with you, I'm not sure. But that's where the gut comes in. Do you believe he can get back to himself? Because if you can probably get him. You probably get him for a 4th, to be honest with you, because since his size, his profile, everybody's probably thinking he's not going to do much. But even if you have to spend a 3rd or a late 3rd, don't do it early 3rd right now. But even a late 3rd, you could potentially get someone that is C.J. Stroud's best friend. It seems like. And he's going to get targets when he's out there. It just depends on his health, just being honest. So when you look at that, just look at both. Say, trust your gut, but look at the analytics. And if you can merge the two, you probably have a great season. But thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Remember, championship teams are built by people who respect the numbers and listen to their football instincts. Hit the subscribe button, like, comment. Would like to hear your thoughts on this. And this is the Dynasty Citadel. Thank you for watching.